Hey everybody, welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of the Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, Chairman and Co-owner, and El Presidente still, I believe, of English Championship side, Peterborough United. Let me just say this to start with. We're recording on Sunday, so there may be a couple of things by the time we go live that we haven't picked up on over the last couple of days, but, I think yesterday's probably still a little bit raw for you. How was, you had a 3-0 defeat at Swansea.
Yeah, that was painful. That was really painful. As painful as my fucking head's been the last 4 weeks. But yeah, that was, yes, this, look, I always said you take your licks, you get beaten in the championship. There's a lot of good teams. You can make all the excuses, but application always has to be put in. You got to look like you need a shower after a game. And that was filthy yesterday. It was one of those games where, my advice to the manager last night was, I'd read this in the NFL once, about the Patriots doing this, was go get the football, take the players to the pitch, have a burial, bury the ball, bury the game, bury everything about it, and move fucking on quickly. Because, sitting there analysing yesterday won't do anyone any good. That was one of those games where collectively you couldn't give a grade. If you grade out of 10, nobody would get more than a 3. To win games in the championship, you need 7, 8, possibly even 9 of your 11 playing above a 7, particularly for a Peterborough, to compete and win. To draw, you could get away with 6s and 7s. What you can't do in this league is get away with 3s all around your team. And that was one of them yesterday, where if the lads are honest with themselves, and I'm gutted for the 400 people who travel there, if the lads were honest with themselves, that was it wasn't good, from any perspective. I don't think we left our own half until the 27th minute. Mm-hmm. So, and the worst part of it is, even at 2-0 down, we've had 2 absolute great chances to score goals. And again, it's fine margins. So, that wasn't a good day at the office. And we gave up the ghost second half, and obviously just, made sure we didn't lose the second half. That's probably the only positive. We didn't go under. And that's, listen, I give praise to the players' mentality and to their perseverance that, they could have gone out and lost 7 or 8-0 in that second half. And they kept it 0-0 in the second half. You take your licks, you move on. But at no point in the second half did we look like we were going to have a Cardiff-like comeback who came back from 3-0 against Stoke yesterday. So, yeah, that was as bad as it gets. And you can apologise to the fans, but what's the point? Talk is cheap. The only thing you can do is follow up and win. And we've come off 2 good wins. And we've had a horror show yesterday. And that's the championship. And that's going to happen, unfortunately. And we spoke about it before we came on here, that, a club our size is going to have days like that. And as long as it doesn't infect you going forward, you just have to get it out of your system. And, and I guess, look, social media, it'll be the usual told you so merchants will be out in force about that and whatever else. But, I've spoke about this group before. We'll bounce back. And we've got home games coming up and some crackers coming up, but we'll bounce back. And we've got to go into the international break, with a bounce back. And we have to figure out what it is away from home that turns us into a completely different football team. Because we just losing 7 and 8, we're not good. We're not good away from home. And we have to fix it. And we have to fix it pretty quickly. And if we want to do well at this level, we have to figure out why we're fucking horrific when we go away from home. Because it is chalk and cheese. It's Jekyll and Hyde, from home to away. So that's important.
Yeah, I know it's not your mentality to just kind of take the kicking and move on, so to speak. But, when you go up a level, especially when there's such a gulf in class these days, even between League One and the Championship, sometimes you're 15 minutes into a game and you know that you're going to be walking out defeated, and it's just one of those days. And you're going to have a few of those this year.
It is just, look, I've no problem with you saying that. And you're probably right, but I'm of that mentality of, you have to try. You have to give your fans something. Now, granted, at 2-0, we did try. And then we had those 2 opportunities and we gave up. And even late in the game, Joe Ward, all he's got to do is square it, and Clark Harris got an open goal. And we muffed the pass. I mean, that said everything about us, that even the subs were as bad as the first 11. But you're right, you take a licking. And it's not nice when you're watching it. And I've always said there's a way to lose and a way not to lose. And that was a way not to lose yesterday. So I'm hoping to see a response. It wasn't good. It wasn't enjoyable. And God bless all the people who travel there.
So you have Huddersfield and Fulham coming up. So both high flying. so far this season. As you said before, on multiple occasions, it doesn't get any easier, but you also say that's why you're in the championship.
Yeah, they're the games you want. I mean, listen, Fulham are fucking, they batter everyone. But you know what? They listen, Huddersfield, Fulham, great fixtures, Premier League teams in the last 4 years. They're the games you want. Are they going to be tough? Of course they are. If we don't show up like yesterday, of course we get fucking beaten. However, I also know our lads, QPR were doing well. They were flying. We beat them. We have it in us.
Yep.
Birmingham were on a good run. We beat them. We can beat teams in this league. So,
You
and
got your
we're at
point at Bournemouth.
yeah, listen, yeah, Bournemouth was not a game I enjoyed because it was kind of like clean sheet City. It was never really any forward intent. And if we have that mentality against Fulham and Huddersfield, we won't pick up any points.
Mm.
So, look, that's down to the manager and the staff. I trust the manager. He has to get the best out of the team and the staff. That's up to them. I'm here to watch the games. I'll enjoy it. So let's see. I've got a busy week. I'm interviewing CEOs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I got fans forum Monday night. I got the game on Tuesday. It's going to be non-fucking stop.
Now you say you're here to watch the games, but you didn't actually watch the game, did you, this weekend? Or at least you didn't go there in person.
I didn't travel to Wales now, the whole vaccine passport thing and testing thing. I was like, nah, fuck that. I couldn't be bothered. And no coincidence either. Like I've said to you, my head's been ringing for 4 weeks. I went this week and had scans on my brain, my back. I was very paranoid. I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, but touch wood, all the scans were great and normal, but I still have these headaches. So it's kind of like irritating the shit out of me because I'm not that person. I don't like feeling under the weather. So I didn't fancy, 5-6 hours in a car to Wales and back, having to get some app downloaded and show my vaccine status, in an industry that I'm part of. Yeah, I was like, fuck that. You know what I mean? So I'm glad we haven't got that crap at our place in our league.
So I can speak briefly on the Bradford boys. Yesterday we got 1-1
Oh,
at
yeah.
Forest Green,
Oh, that, yeah.
which on the face of it is a good point because Forest Green are going well, but we really should have got all three. We've
Really?
we've spoken a little bit about lack of composure in goal
Yeah.
all through the season, and that definitely came to haunt us. And then just awful refereeing. I mean, they scored with an end-to-end counter-attack that they probably fouled us 3 times on the way to scoring, and it just calls into question again quality of refereeing.
I can't comment on referees,
I know.
but I hear you.
I
I hear
can.
you. You can, yeah, absolutely. I've suffered through that.
And it's we had one. I want to say Forest Green's antics. I kind of mentioned it on the show last week, and even though they have a new manager, the antics
Right.
continue. Whenever anyone's touched.
What is it about Forest Green that winds you up? What did they do to you when you played them?
So when Mark Cooper was in charge, it was it's like goalkeeper, juggling the ball, keep you up is on the 18-yard line, and then anytime anyone gets touched, they go down like a sack of potatoes.
Right.
Going into every challenge with, and I know it's kind of the gamesmanship, but every challenge with the elbows high and
Right.
just going into kind of harm.
Dark
And,
arts.
and
Dark
yes,
arts.
dark arts, absolutely, and getting away with it. I think that's the
And they're
because
still doing it under the new manager.
yeah, I mean they did it, which surprised me, but it was full of it again yesterday, and that's just really frustrating. And it's probably frustrating because they do it and we don't win. If they do it to you and you win, then it's like, oh, it doesn't really matter. But it's just one of those things that makes you always leave a game against them frustrated, which I guess full credit to them for doing so.
Yeah. No, listen, we've played teams like that, and you know what you're going to get, and it is what it is. And I've after 15 years now, I've kind of like got to the stage where I'm just used to it. Like
Mhm.
my ex-manager, Stevie Evans,
Yep.
he could wind you up like the best of them as his assistant, and I'm watching. It's only when our staff get embroiled in it, you're not in for a good day. And it's like, don't bite.
Mhm.
Don't bite. Look, I'm not going to judge any team for doing what they do. That's just the dark arts of football. That's the game. That's the way it is. It's frustrating. And if it's a game that you should have won, and Forest Green are a fucking good side, I've
Mhm.
had my scouts going, watching a few of their plays a few times. So, they're obviously doing something right. Do you fancy them to go up?
Um, I don't know. Like, it's funny, we had the last 2 games, we had Forest Green and Swindon. Even though we
Mm,
beat Swindon at their place, I would say that there's probably more, attacking intent, and perhaps quality going forward in the Swindon side than I saw in the Forest Green side.
okay.
Um, But that dark arts, they know what to do. So it's either they'll get found out, or they'll
Sure.
just they'll take that and it'll take them all the way to the title. And I really don't know which way it's going to go
Okay.
for them. But I mean, they've obviously been early pace setters, and
Yeah.
um, they
That means
weren't.
that
Yeah, I mean, they weren't that impressive against us, but
you
maybe
were
that was
impressed
just an
with
off
yourself.
day.
You were impressed with your team. You did well.
Yeah, it's. I think that we deserved. We probably deserved to go in at least two up at halftime. The second half was probably more 50-50.
Okay.
So we probably deserved to win by a goal. And it was some bad refereeing aligned with the fact that we still had plenty of chances to clear our lines when they scored that
Okay.
got them the goal.
Yeah. No, I get it. Frustration. It's no posh Bradford win double this weekend.
Not No, we'll have to wait for next week instead. Uh, you know, talking about referees,
Yeah.
did you see it late in Orient yesterday,
No.
where
Wow.
the referee forgot to add injury time? So he added 4 minutes of injury time, but he blew up after 45 minutes. Tried to figure out what he should do about it. Well, what he did do about it was come back, start the second half, and played those 4 minutes, and then stopped it and had them change ends, and then played the second half.
I mean, please, how couldn't his assistants told him you got 4 minutes of injury time? Like when it was going on, isn't that why
Yeah,
you've got assistants and mic'd up? And did the managers not tell him as he was walking
I
off the
don't
pitch?
know.
Uh,
I was just reading that this morning. Which
was it
makes
fucking Leighton Orient smashed them 5-0, didn't they? It was a
they
hell of a
did, yeah.
result. Jesus Christ Almighty! Wow,
But
that's bizarre.
it makes me wonder: should we be professionalizing refereeing at the lower levels?
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
so much inconsistency.
there is. I have to say, I've seen a remarkable improvement in the refs in the champ. They're
Yeah.
almost Premier League. A lot of them. We've had one or two, not good ones, but I haven't really thought about complaining about referees. Look, the guy in Middlesbrough who gave us the Lincoln penalty, he's probably the only one because,
Mm,
like, he probably, wanted to go against us. He didn't give the Dembele penalty. He then
yeah.
penalised Nathan Thompson, for 9 times out of 10 you wouldn't. So, but the rest of them, I mean, they've been good. So you're right. There's more money need to be allocated to the league. There has to be a way to do this. You
Yeah.
know, what would you pay? What do full time refs get? 50 grand a year? I
Yeah, I don't
can't.
know. And it's, for some of them, I'm sure it's not worth it for that because they've got good careers and they do this on the side. But I got to feel like there has to be some money available.
Well, there's got to be, for me, you've got to get ex players involved who are on the scrap heap financially. There's a lot of ex players who didn't save money. There's a lot of ex players who are not qualified to do anything else but be in football. So for me, there has to be a market there. If you did professionalize everything and brought in a pot of money and had camps and improved it, you've got to go after ex players because they know the game, the temperature of the game. And they would be the ones for me that you would target because they would already have like some sort of a pension. So earning 40 or 50 grand to referee and be in the game still, they would absolutely give their left testicle for. So that would be my thought process. That would be the line to go down.
And they can spot those dark arts because they did it all
All of it.
themselves.
All of it. Of course they can. Of course they can. Absolutely. And you put them through training camps. And, it's absolutely a side of the game that should be as good as anything. So, and I'm sure a lot of referees would agree with that, who probably see some of the shit decisions made by other refs and think, shit, they're blighting our industry. They're, drawing attention to it when we do our job really well. So, but look, even in the Premier League, mistakes still get made. You saw yesterday the Man City red card, and then there was a game later on, I forget which game it was, where there was a similar incident and it was only a yellow card. I want to say was it the Burnley and Brentford game? I can't remember which game it was. There was Match of the Day kind of highlighted it last night. That there was two polarizing last man incidents. One was a yellow, one was a red. There was no consistency in the decision making process on it.
So we're here, as we said earlier, we're here on Sunday morning, so we haven't had the benefit of seeing the results on Sunday afternoon. But when we look at the Premier League yesterday, actually a lot of the big teams all played yesterday.
Yes.
Um, your Liverpool boys only got a 2-2 at Brighton, and from what I hear about it from somebody else I know who's a Liverpool fan, it seems like they were pretty lucky to get that.
Hit the bed. It's a bit of a concern this season. Actually, they're not great at Anfield. I think they've drawn 3 or 5 games, and 2 of them are against like league rivals, as in Man City and Chelsea have both got a result, draw. And Brighton are a very good team. Man City put them to the sword. The worry with Liverpool always is, and you've seen it a few times this season, where they've given up 2-0 leads in the Champions League and now in the league. The worry with them is if they don't get that. Last season was they didn't get the second goal. There was an issue. This season is if they don't get the third goal, there's an issue. And they were on top. And I watched the game on Sky later on, the extended highlights. There was a period there, 2-0, where they should have got a third goal. And they didn't. And Brighton are that team who play. I mean, their manager has gotten playing scintillating football. Some of the football was just absolutely phenomenal. So whatever he's doing right. He's obviously a fucking superb manager. And no word of a lie, it was like Keystone Cops defending for Liverpool, which is a bit like that this season. And in the second half, Brighton could have won that game. They had a goal disallowed. They were in. That wasn't a good day. Liverpool defensively have been probably as bad as they've been before we got Van Dijk this year. Not good. They have a new centre half in there with them. Van Dijk's probably not at the Rolls Royce, purring like he has been. They just don't look as good against a good team. A team that move quickly, get in behind and score goals against Liverpool.
And hats off to Brighton for kind of staying at the races. And
Didn't go under. It's a different proposition. Like I said, that they had that lifeline at 3-0 when Mane's goal was disallowed for a handball. They didn't go under. They got a lucky goal, and then Liverpool got nervous, and then they built on that. And the real issue for Liverpool is probably midfield, which is you could hark back to the summer in recruitment with all the injuries and the issues. Liverpool haven't got a league winning midfield. So that's not going to help. Chelsea missing lots of players, roll into Newcastle and smash them 3-0. For me, if we stay thereabouts with 5 games to go, we got a chance. And that'll be down to Jurgen Klopp. It won't be down to the squad. We know we got a good team. Squad-wise, very average, in my opinion.
And hats off to Crystal Palace as well. I mean, this was an ideal chance for Liverpool to get a little bit more breathing space with Man City losing at home, but fantastic result for Palace.
That's been coming. They were very unlucky against Arsenal. I watched the game last week. They were very unlucky against, it was a Newcastle 1-1. They had a goal disallowed. They battered them. They've been playing some good football. You looked at the statistics, a different team to old boy Hodgson was snoring them in management. Very, very good football. Vieira's impressed. The recruitment's been good. They've got good young players. They've obviously just released their video, their new academy they spent 20 million on. They're in a good place, Palace. And I guess going into last summer as a Palace fan, you were worried they had 16 players out of contract. Hodgson's leaving. It went a bit late when they were bringing a new manager in. But Palace have had that knack since they've got back to the Premier League of they fired managers. They looked like they were going down. They hired the right guy. They'd stay up. And they look like they could get stronger. And they're very impressive. And that wasn't a lot of fluke result. I actually still think even when 11v11, Palace could have nicked that game. Impressive to see. And it just shows you what can be done. When you talk about a club, Palace versus Man City, the Gulf, and whatever else, maybe Man City would not sign in a striker now. I think they've had 5 games they haven't scored a goal in. Maybe that's coming back to bite. I still think they're going to be, for me, it's going to be them and Chelsea for the title. Liverpool will be an outside bet.
And some other interesting results, Watford having scored 5 away from home last week, now lose at home to Southampton.
Southampton battered them. Armstrong and Shea Adams missed loads of chances. I thought Southampton were valued for that. Burnley back to their best. Haven't won since January at home. Cornet looks like a hell of a signing. Brentford suddenly have dropped off. They've lost their goalie. He's a superstar, that goalie they've lost. We've got money riding on that, so I hope they start winning again.
And what else Spurs, poor Spurs. I mean, it seems like the wheels are falling off.
Awful. I'm sure the Wolves fans will tell you, what you're getting with Nuno. He loves a clean sheet. He loves a 1-0. I read the other day, I think he's only won 1 game by a 2-goal margin in 2 years. That's there to be seen when you're recruiting. Don't think they're going to change. Managers are like endangered species. They don't change. Leopards never change their spots. Managers are very similar in style of football. So if you hire a manager who loves a clean sheet, who loves a 1-goal winning margin, don't expect them to turn into, I don't know, let's try out a manager who loves scoring goals. A Jurgen Klopp, a Guardiola. They're not going to suddenly change from this to that. It just doesn't happen. They've had a certain way of working. They have their habits. They take them in. That's Nuno for you. And Spurs isn't a good place at the moment. Harry Kane looks like he'd rather be anywhere else but there. And I'm sure Daniel Levy's pulling his hair out. And then they're going to have to do some business in the next 2 windows. And that includes probably getting a manager in that fits the profile because they've got a £1 billion stadium. They've got a brand worldwide. But what they don't have is they don't have a brand of football that's
No,
giving their fans any enjoyment at the moment.
and they're going
So
backwards rather than
they
forwards at the
are
moment.
going backwards. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a horror show at the moment. But I'm one of those. I think Levy. He's a good owner with Joe Lewis above him, and I think they'll get it right. And there's going to be a managerial merry-go-round, I'd imagine, in the next 6 months
Mhm.
with a few jobs.
And across North London, Arteta went from being on the verge of being fired to Barcelona, saying that he doesn't want the Barcelona job. How things
Football.
change in a month, right?
Well, yeah, but I always thought the recruitment at Arsenal was decent with the young players. I can't
Yeah,
remember if I said it in the podcast
you
that
did, I think.
it might take a couple of years, but I like the young players they were signing. And I've always been of that mind. If he gets a chance, and fair play to the Cronkies, who've had a lot of hammerings. They spent more than anyone else in the summer, but they've invested well, and you're starting to see now that it come to fruition. The recruitment, the right back, Ben White. Obviously Smith Rowe is coming to the forefront. You've got the experience up front now blended in there with that team. Parties come to the party. Things are starting to click. The problem with Arsenal is the minute they lose a game or two, and then suddenly everyone's on them again, and it's Arsenal and blah blah blah. But they were very impressive against Leicester. Leicester were very lackluster. They were like us against Swansea in the first 20, 30 minutes. And then late in the game, they could have scored goals. But in fairness, Ramsdale was fucking like Gordon Banks reincarnated yesterday. He was unbelievable. So, yeah, the Arsenal project's interesting. I'll admit, I was jealous of a couple of their signings, from a Liverpool perspective. When was the last time Liverpool went out and spent, 30, 40, 50 million on players like that, you know what I mean, without actually selling somebody first. So Arsenal's business was good. It could pay off. I think the Arteta project could take off there.
And that's what it is, isn't it? It's building foundations for a
Yeah,
project, and
yeah,
where
it's
you
project.
have this expectation to win today. It's whether he can see it through, and he needs results like yesterday to give him some
I would
time.
have I would have more confidence in him winning the league before someone like Solskjaer would win the league.
Yeah.
Only because
Uh,
he's worked with Guardiola for so long. I think there's a pedigree there.
mhm.
So yeah, that's what I think about that.
So going into the championship, actually, we were talking last week about Hull. We had the question about what do Hull need to do to make the club more attractive to sell, and no sooner had we talked about that than word coming across that Hull were at least. I don't want to say they're being sold because it seems like there's some way to go on the deal yet, but there's certainly some interest out there.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to lie. I've inside scoop that it's not Grant McCann, by the way. It's other people within the industry talk. So I'd known previous to that podcast that somebody had agreed a deal to buy them. Agreeing a deal to buy someone and executing the deal are two different things. You've seen it with Derby at the moment. There's this guy, Krishna or whatever his name is, floating around and who showed up at their game. He's been tweeting all week. Who seems to be a billionaire based in Dubai from America originally. So obviously, and that's clever from if you're trying to buy a club. You can go two ways. You can try and get the fans on side, so you put pressure, on those in charge of administration and the previous owner to do a deal, or you stay quiet and get your money in and do the deal. So there's two different ways to do it. I bought Peterborough. There was no real social media at the time, so I'm not sure how I'd handle it now. But each to their own. So look, the Derby fans are, they've been through it the last few months, the last year. So if this guy's got all the dough, and he seems to, and he's in that position, they could be a powerhouse.
Yeah, on Derby, it was Chris Kirchner because we had a question actually about it,
Yeah, what was the
asking
question?
if either of us knew anything about him. I
No,
mean, no,
no, never heard of him. But obviously, if you do some digging, it appears he's a very wealthy young man.
yeah.
So look, they've been there before with that Alonso chap who was taking pictures of fucking mansions for his Instagram account, but he was out viewing houses of other people. So who knows? Do you know what I mean? Apparently so. So I think this guy looks like he's the real deal. The administrator's not a mug. He would have to see
Mhm.
proof of funds, as would the EFL. If you're a billionaire, Derby's a great proposition. I don't know the figures. I hear it's 50 million or it's 70 million. It's 30 to the taxman. It's 20 to Dell. It's
Mhm.
20 million to the previous. Who knows? But it's going to take a very wealthy person to press the reset button on
Yeah.
Derby. Because before you start investing in the squad and the infrastructure, you could be 60, 70 million down. So,
You got to really
but
want it for meaning that there's a lot cheaper options for you to buy your way into English
right,
football, even at that
60,
level,
70, 60, 70 million to you, it's got to be like me spending $100 on a barbell.
right?
So it's got to be a very, very deep pocketed person, who goes in there because then the running course of the club, but it's a monstrous club. And I always said this, it will rise again. It just when all that stuff's worked out. So good luck to the new guy. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously trying to engage with fans and stuff like that. I hope it all comes off.
Now, does that even matter to an administrator? And what I mean, does it matter is, building the rapport, because it's interesting that he's trying to, there's going to be a lot of tire kickers. We'll see how many people are really serious, but he's obviously out there trying to get the goodwill and trying to get the fans on his side. But at the end of the day, the administrators only care about what the numbers add.
The administrators know what they need. They know what they need to do to clear off historical debt. They know what they need to do to press the reset button and to make it, a club that's in a good place financially and be able to sign players and come out of all the things like embargoes and historical issues with the tax man. There are deals to be done. Look, if I were a previous owner sitting there on a big sum of money, I would watch from the sidelines and wait till the 11th hour. I would wait till I know there's a deal about to happen. And say there's a deal. Let's say Derby's a £70 million debt, and deals have been done where you're getting it for half of that or whatever it might be. I'd come in at the 11th hour and offer 10% more in the 11th hour. Do you know what I mean? I would not do anything right now. I'd wait in the background. I'd wait. The process, everyone talking, the people who want to buy it, blah, 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 blah. And then in the 11th hour, I go, bang, there's my offer. There's my bid. And because for me, Derby is it's Derby. It's it's a massive football club. So
you don't necessarily want to be involved in. You don't want to create an auction in the early stages of the buying process. If you create an auction at the end, it's going to be about 1 million or 2 million. If you create an auction at the beginning, it's going to be about 5 million or 10 million.
Like I said, I'd be a sleeper all the way. And then there become a time when look, there's a deal agreed, there's a bid put in, there's this happening, and then I go, bang, there's mine. So it'll be fascinating. They will get sold and they will get resolved. I always said that. I never saw Derby getting liquidated. So, and God bless and hope that goes to plan for all the Derby fans.
Any other results in the Championship that stood out for you this weekend?
No, Fulham beat West Brom 3-0. You expected that. Fulham were phenomenal at home. Mitrovic is having his own golden boot party. Who else in there? Bournemouth again, solid result. Cardiff fighting back, well played them. I think they'd lost 8 in the trot. There was no other big. Blackpool beating Sheffield United away.
I feel like we talked about them last week.
I upset their fans last week, didn't I? They're all coming for me. Mind your own business, whatever else. But again, underscoring what I said about their manager. They're in a completely different place from us mentally. They've really got their act together, home and away. So fair play. There were no other big shocks in there. I think maybe Luton losing. I didn't see that one. I think Preston beat Luton. That was a surprise. So on to League One. Anything? It was funny. A friend of mine said to me yesterday. We spoke before the Posh game. He said, "I'm putting my ACCA on." He likes to make a bet and a few results. He said, "What do you think, Rotherham, Sunderland?" I said, "Rotherham will smash them." And he goes, "No chance." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Rotherham, strong fucking team. Do you know what I mean? Everything's around Michael Smith. Look at the size, the players that are scoring. I just fancied Rotherham big. I know Sunderland lost last time out. And I always said it'd be interesting after a couple of losses to see how the Sunderland fans would handle that, to make sure it doesn't go toxic, because obviously they've had a really good start to the season. You want to see how they handle a wobble. And obviously they've gone to Rotherham and got absolutely fucking smashed to pieces yesterday, haven't they? So that was a surprise result. Not a surprise result for me, but a surprise, the actual scoreline. What else in there surprised you?
You got Charlton,
No, that wasn't a surprise.
Well, not a surprise. Well, I mean, I say it's a surprise in that they're starting to get some points on the board. And that's not a surprise that they should get the points on the board, but they're just starting to turn it around.
I've said this before, and I've seen it a million times at my place when I've sat managed and brought people in. You can't win a game, you sat manage and the players suddenly wake up and win games. Charlton get rid of Atkins and suddenly the players wake up and win games. That tells you everything you need to know. They were playing Donny. Donny aren't great. They're as bad as us away from home. That didn't shock me at all yesterday, that result. Another great one was Plymouth. Love that. 2-1, top of the league. Ryan Lowe working miracles there. I think they had nearly 20,000 fans. I mean, club really, really starting to purr. And fair play to them and their fans.
And Bolton continuing to fall after their hot start.
I don't read too much into that. Last year, the manager did a shite start, did a great second half. He's a good manager. I'm sure he'll figure it out. Did I read somewhere he said he was the best? He had the best team in the league or something. I'm not sure if that was said, but I rate him. I think they'll be fine. I think Bolton will come again. Portsmouth nicked a good win, didn't they, yesterday as well?
Yeah. And then in League Two, We had we talked about Leighton Orient putting 5.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
was it? Trying to find it on my score sheet here. There we go. 5 past Hartlepool. Newport putting 5 past Stevenage. I'm actually surprised how Stevenage have fallen recently.
Me
They're still
too.
at bottom now.
He'd done really well there.
Hmm.
I've also thought probably great was Exeter's great away win 2-1 now.
Yes, and they're looking good. They're 4th in the table now.
Told you. So really, really fancy them strong. Interesting league.
And Northampton up to 3rd.
Yep, no
Um,
shock there. They're a bit of a
so
yo-yo from League Two to League One.
yeah,
So don't discount them. Fascinating league.
and I saw that the um, oh, what's their name? The Wrexham owners that I'm drawing a blank on were in town this week.
Deadpool. My son loves Ryan Reynolds. Yeah,
Ryan
yeah, yeah.
Reynolds, there you go.
Ryan MacAnthony or whatever else, who's the actor, and
Yeah,
obviously then he's a TV guy, and then obviously Ryan Reynolds is, as we all know, Deadpool, and
yeah.
to my daughter is a very sexy individual.
Well, they went from LA to Maidenhead, and then to Wrexham, I think, and saw a defeat and a draw this week. So perhaps a rude
Hey,
awakening to
you
National
know
League
what?
football.
Yeah, fair play to them. They've taken a project on there. They've got a lot of experienced people in there running Wrexham. I'm surprised they're not doing better. They're paying wages. We saw that in the summer with Mullen and other people signing there. Phil Parkinson, I believe, is the manager. Your
He
old
is, yeah,
pal.
yeah. And Steve
Um, I,
Parkin as assistant.
yeah, for me, Wrexham should be walking that league with the money that's been made available. And if they don't, that's a reflection of the people running it from the
Hmm.
football side, including the management team. So, those Hollywood owners have been let down so far. So, when you see some of the teams and what they're doing in that league.
I see that there's been some murmurings of we should have 3 up, 3 down from National League to League Two again.
Don't
Um,
disagree.
yeah,
Don't disagree. Quality in National League compared to the bottom of League Two, I don't disagree. I think it's right. I think it's horrible that graveyard only has that kind of, is it 2 up at the moment, one via
yeah.
the
One
playoffs automatically.
automatically, and then some convoluted playoff system.
Yeah, exactly, which takes in 8 teams or 6 teams or whatever it might be. So I don't disagree. I think the quality in the National League now, some of the clubs in there, absolutely. Some of them are like Football League greats that have dropped into that division, like your Notts Counties and your Stockports. So I don't disagree with that. When you see some of the crap sometimes at the bottom of League Two, the points that they amass and the lack of energy they put into staying in League Two, I think some of the clubs in the National League deserve those spots. So absolutely, that definitely needs to change down the line.
Now, there's a couple of other things that to ask you about this week. There's one, if we go back up to the Premier League. So Calvin Phillips has been linked with a move to Man United over the last week or two. The question actually is, so Phillips is obviously a big Leeds fan. How would you deal with a player who you had a big bid in, who you wanted to sell, but it was to a rival club and he didn't want to go?
Um, Yeah, it's a tough one. There's nothing you can do. You can't force. It's not like the NFL or sports in America where you can force players to leave and go. This is driven by the player and the agent. So if he doesn't want to go to Man United, there's nothing you can do about that. I think he's a terrific player. I think for me, the best player in that position is the boy who plays for Brighton, who's had a few issues, I think, with the police recently. He came back yesterday, against Liverpool, by Osso or whatever his name is. So, but Calvin's a good player. United need a player like that. They need a Tillemans. They need him. That's the kind of player they need in that position if they really want to be Premier League credential challengers and a different manager, most likely. But you can't force it. But I'm not sure he turned down Man United. And look, I like Leeds. I've spoke about Leeds before. I think, if it was Man United with Alex Ferguson, I don't think he'd turn him down. If it was Man United at the moment, potentially he could, because he's a Leeds lad through and through. So that'll be an interesting one if bids start happening. Very
Uh,
interesting.
Now, if somebody came in for one of your players who was a big rival, would that impact or influence your decision
No,
to sell?
no, and our players wouldn't turn it down if there was more money, and I wouldn't turn down my decision. No, it would in League One.
Hmm.
We were flying high last year, and I don't know. Let's name a club in there, who were flying high with us. Sunderland, who we were vying for second spot for a while with, had come in and offered us 4 million for Clark Harris. We would have
Yeah,
said no.
yeah.
No, so yes, at that time. But in the Championship, I mean, it's a different league. Premier League again, are Leeds competing with Man United? Not at the moment. It's a tough one, isn't it?
But
Um,
hypothetically, let's say Northampton were higher than you and came in for one of your star players and put
it wouldn't
money on the
stop me.
table.
Wouldn't stop me doing business with them. I've bought players off Northampton,
Hmm.
so that you can't let pride get in the way of a good deal. And that's silly. There are clubs right now I despise their owners. I don't like them, and I'll still do business with them.
Yeah.
I'm not small minded. It's why I've been successful in life. You're small minded and you fucking close your eyes off to things out of pride or out of stupidity or out of anger. You just shoot yourself in the foot.
Hmm.
I don't negotiate and work like that. I don't play like that. So it doesn't matter who I'm dealing with. I'm always open for business because that's the business we're in.
Now, the International Football Association this week had a board meeting recommending 5 subs that can play instead of having 3. What do you see as some of the positives and negatives? Like, is that something we should be thinking about? Is that going to lead to bigger squads? Is it a non-starter?
No, I didn't mind it when we had it temporarily in League One during
Mhm.
COVID. More young players get a chance, and get some minutes. I can see why the Premier League clubs, the smaller clubs, worry because of the quality of the squads. Liverpool could bring 5 changes on, or
Right.
sorry, not Liverpool. Their squad's not as good as say Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea can bring on 5 subs late in the game or whatever else. Against a Crystal Palace, against the Burnley, and why don't they compromise? Make it 4.
Mhm.
Have a compromise in there. Put in something as well that one of the subs, the 4th sub, has to be a UK homegrown player.
Right.
Incentivize younger players getting opportunities.
I wonder
So
about putting in rules that say that you can't sub a sub unless it's injured or something. I don't know how you govern, because what I'm thinking is like there's a risk of then you go down the road of specialist players. When you're bringing them on for a situation and then you take them back off again, and because you've got
yeah,
5 subs.
I'm not against the 5. I think
Mhm.
if the compromise could be 4. Be interesting how many times people use all their substitutions. I know
Yeah,
during COVID we needed it
yeah.
because of what's going on and the circumstances around it. I don't think any of our games ever changed off the back of our manager bringing 5 people on. I think when we won a game 7-0, he made 5 subs just to give everyone a bit of game time.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that was detrimental to the team we battered 7-0.
Right.
Um, or advantageous to us.
Yeah.
But I can see the arguments why a Palace or other clubs wouldn't want that to happen.
And I don't know if you saw the news this week about Christian Eriksen not being able to play in Serie
Yeah,
A.
yeah,
Um, do you think that there's going to be many clubs that are willing to take a punt on him outside of Serie A, given what happened to
I,
him this summer?
I think if he's in good shape, if he's healthy in January, and I think if the medical reports are good, and there's very little chance that happens again, he's had something fitted.
Yeah.
He's a quality player. He's only 30. I see no reason you couldn't borrow him off Milan and take him to the Premier League or take him somewhere else. And obviously, if something you'd have to write in there, medical clause that if his heart condition came up,
Hmm.
the deal would be cancelled and you wouldn't be held on financial, having to pay for it financially. So I think, to stop his career in one country when medically he's allowed in other countries makes no sense. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what that's all about, but I think he definitely deserves another chance. He's far too young to not play football anymore.
Yeah.
So I think we'll all smile when we see him play again.
I think Serie A rules state that you can't play if you've had a pacemaker fitted. And
Right, okay. But
um,
other leagues allow it.
yes, I know that Danny Blind, who's in Ajax, I think he plays for, has got one as well, and he's fine in the Dutch league.
There you
So I
go.
think it's just a Serie A thing.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So listen, I'm sure there's a lot of clubs in England that, if he was fully fit and the deal was right, would absolutely fucking love to have him in their team.
Mhm.
Probably Spurs again, for a bit of creativity,
Right, I was going
So
to say, do you think there's a place for him back in the Premier League?
hey, he'd have a point to prove. It'd
Yeah.
be interesting. Maybe he'd be on Newcastle's wish list. I'm sure they've got a long wish list for January.
It's like Santa's list, isn't it? It's like my 8-year-old's list for Santa is Newcastle's wish list at the moment.
Well, what would you do if you were Newcastle? What would you do?
I mean, I think that you got to go short term at the
Do
moment.
you?
Um, Bring somebody in who can galvanize what they've got, add to it to keep them safe in the summer, and then start in the summer. I think you got to forget about long term at the moment.
Okay. So who would you go for?
Who would I go for? Oh,
Yeah.
um, honestly, I would. So I'm not a big fan of going overseas for somebody for a short term fix because those
Yeah.
folks don't know the league.
Sure.
So as much as it's very cliche to say
I
so,
read I read Gattuso. I mean, what are they doing?
right?
linked with him. Has he ever won anything with all the
I don't
great clubs?
think so.
No, so that's a strange one. But who would you go for?
I
What
mean,
would you pick?
like I say, it's cliche, but somebody like Sam Allardyce is the kind of person that I think that they need. I know you kind of cringe there, and maybe he's not the one. But somebody who's got a record of keeping teams up in the Premier League, that can, I don't know. I mean, I know I say this having they had a bad season, but what about someone like Chris Wilder? Somebody who knows the league inside out and knows.
The problem with Chris Wilder is he's, when things went bad, they went very bad
Right.
with the boardroom, with the team. Is he a guy because he's going to want to change things? I like Chris Wilder. I'm not sure that's right for him. Would this be a mad one here? And I'm watching him. The guy Ralph Husenhall at Southampton, when he first came to Southampton, because of the way he plays and the statistics, you look at the change. The problem for him has been not that he's a bad manager; they've sold all his best players. What would he be like having kept some of his best
Right.
players at Southampton? And is he the type of manager? The impact he had at Southampton when he came in 3 or 4 years ago, his training methods and everything else. Is he the type of guy that would get the best out of a Newcastle in the short term? But again, can you make that work? Can you? So I don't know. It's a fascinating one.
Now, do you think that if they go short term, they got to pick somebody that's out of work, or whether somebody in work will take what ultimately is most likely to be a short term gig?
I know they want the Dutch guy. I'm not sure he wants to go there. Forget his name. It's a real weird name, isn't it? Tang or whatever else. I'm obviously there's no way Conte touched that job because of where they are in the league. It's a tough one to solve. I can imagine I'm watching their faces in Match of the Day last night, sitting there watching them getting thumped again, and they're thinking the worst. Like, fuck me almighty, if we go down, we can't attract all the players we want. So what do we do? And then what kind of player do we want to bring in? So they need a football director, and they need a manager for now. And then if you're saying to a manager who's coming in, we need a manager for now, they're like, well, if we're not the long-term future, do we really want to come to you? So you're between a rock and a hard place really at the moment. And obviously the current guy, Graham Jones, isn't going to fucking win them any football games with all due respect. So you saw that in the performance yesterday against Chelsea, who weren't a full-strength Chelsea side. They didn't have Mount, they didn't have Lukaku, they didn't have fucking, quite a few players in there. So it really is a head-scratcher. I know Newcastle in 5 years are going to be a lot better than they are right now. But if you're those owners right now, football's a fickle game. You're watching your team getting smashed, every week at the moment.
So that being said, I think that everyone agrees that in 5 years' time, Newcastle are going to be a different outfit than where they are today.
Yes.
Do you think about if we go down, it's not the end of the world, and let's think more structurally from day one about solving this problem versus let's try and do a short-term fix?
Yeah, 100%. But the problem you've got then is, here's the issue. If you go down, there's no world-class manager going in to manage Newcastle from going down in the championship. So you're going to hire someone else. And the likelihood is they're going to win the championship by 20 points. So what are you going to do then? Fire them when you get to the Premier League? So you're then going to have a manager who's not necessarily world-class. A bit like what happened with Chris Hughton. Brought him up, wasn't really world-class, did okay, and then gets moved on. So it's a tough one. This has to be right. So they still have a chance of staying up because, without a doubt, they've got to probably sign. For me, the first 5, they've got to make at least 5 signings in January, and they've got to be right through the spine of the team. They need, obviously, a central defender. They're going to need somebody in midfield. They're going to need a creative 10. They're going to need a striker. That's your spine. Straight away, you need a spine. Spine of strength, durable players who are not injury prone are going to be in the 11 straight away from the get-go. And obviously, you need a manager with a system. And then watch all the Toon faithful get behind them. Then they got a chance. But those first 4 or 5 signings are going to be the right ones, right through the spine of the team. Sorry, carry on.
But for all the will in the world, those aren't going to be the players that are going to take them further, are they? Unlikely that they're going to be able to attract those players in a relegation battle.
Well, money talks and bullshit walks. So I dare say you talk. I don't know. It depends on some players. I mean, we threw out Calvin Phillips to Man United. If they went to Calvin Phillips and said we're going to give you 250 grand a week to come to Newcastle, is he the type of player Newcastle need in front of their back four? Would he buy into a project, knowing that it's a massive football club? So is that a signing? I don't upset Leeds fans because I like Leeds fans, but is that a signing that would work? A terrific player. Do you go and buy a Lingard, give Manchester United 40 million for Lingard, which is way over what it's worth, but knowing that what he did at West Ham, so you can play in that role behind the front players. So straight away, just those two, for instance, you're buying 2 players there, straight off the bat who are Premier League players who've done very well and would do very well for your team. Do you go and then offer, I don't know, you go and get a centre back? Do you go and offer Brighton 40 million for Dunk? So again, you're talking about a spine. Just those players alone in a spine, straight off the bat, they wouldn't turn the money down. They're good, honest pros, so they wouldn't take the piss either. And again, you've got three players that will make Newcastle today twice as good. Do you go to Graham Potter and Brighton and offer Brighton a pot of gold and get Graham Potter in as your manager and sell the vision sell the vision that you might be going down to the champ, Graham, but you're going to be Newcastle's messiah for the next 10 years. And we like what you're doing at Brighton and we want you to do it here at Newcastle.
Now, should they go down into the Championship, or do they need kind of the battle-tested Premier League players to help them turn this around?
Well, I've just given you a few there. I'm not sure you need experienced Prem because those ones are going to be mercenaries on bigger money. But just bringing in, if you brought in those players I mentioned and a Graham Potter, who'd also probably nick the odd Brighton player, you would transform the team. I mean, even if they're 10 points out of it, I would fancy them from January to May to still stay up because a manager and a team with a spine is capable of winning 7, 8 out of 10 games in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So again, it's really fascinating. It's a bit like Football Manager watching Newcastle and what can be done. I said it before, it's going to take probably 8 to 10 transfer windows over 5 years to turn them into league title challengers.
And much as we've talked about actually related to Peterborough, it takes a couple of good results, and suddenly the outlook changes. And you're not necessarily talking about looking down, but you're looking up. And it's a different project.
Yeah, that's football. Winning is confidence. You know what I mean? And as good as you can be winning, you can do what we did yesterday and turn up and get fucking spanked. But Man United got spanked last fucking week, and they were probably worse than us than we were against Swansea. And then they turned that around and went and, smashed Spurs to pieces. So that's the nature of the beast. I'll always give Solskjaer his credit for that he seems to get results when he needs them. He just doesn't have that final 2% to make them a league title challenger.
So let's go to a couple of questions that we got in this week. We have a question from Zach, it came in through the email. The vast majority of EFL and Premier League clubs make a loss each season. Why does Darragh think this is, and how difficult is it for English clubs to actually make a profit?
So is this Premier League clubs?
Premier League and EFL. So maybe you can start with Premier League. And the question is basically, why is it so difficult to make a profit?
Well, because the stars of the game demand more and more. And the more TV money deals that are written, the more agents want for their players. And it's an entertainment industry. And it's a bit like making movies. Fewer movies nowadays make money like they used to 20 years ago because the stars take percentage points as well as salaries. So more and more of the profit goes to the star talent. Football is no different. It's a very expensive industry. COVID hasn't helped. A lot of clubs the last 2 years have had horrific financial times, and that's going to take 3-4 years to reset that. There is no real, yes, they got financial fair play, but it's not real financial fair play because you're seeing clubs like your Derbys of the world getting in trouble and many others follow. It's not easy. People always say it to me, you bought a football club. What made you do that? Even the other day, I was getting my brain scanned, and the guy goes, so you bought a football club. What made you do that? And I said, well, you're studying my brain. You tell me. I said, I fancied losing money. So it's just that industry it's not like any other industry in the world, particularly in the UK. And the UK is like where the game's at the moment. Not many clubs will make a profit. As much as they want to profess to, and do things the right way and whatever. Man United are probably the only club that would make a profit because of the size of the brand and how good they are commercially. So, Liverpool aren't far behind because they sell players. They don't overly buy loads of players. They always balance the books. They're expanding the stadium because they realize the more seats and bums and seats is more revenue. So, there are clubs in the league like your Exeters of the world who are run supremely well by their own supporters, who basically sell players like Crew and balance books and turn a profit because they have to. They don't have a sugar daddy to write a check for £1 million when they lose £1 million, or in Peterborough's case, £2 million or whatever it might be. So, but more and more clubs now, because of COVID, you're watching, have to do things sensibly. Your Doncastles of the world who mightn't be doing so well this season, they would never lose any money. Swindon are under new ownership and say that they're being run properly. So, AFC Wimbledon, another one. Fan owns, a lot of wealthy supporters behind it, back at Plough Lane. They won't risk their future. So there are more and more clubs trying to do things prudently, and they should be, I've said this the other day, well-run football clubs should always be applauded.
Do you think there should be more transparency in football club finances? Because would that change the expectation or the we all expect we're going to go and spend money on players and we're going to invest to try and get promoted, but we don't necessarily see behind the scenes and say, well, actually, this puts us at financial risk. You just kind of trust the people at the top making the decisions that are in the best interest of the football club. I wonder if transparency would give people a reality check sometimes.
I'm for it. I've always been for it. I've always been happy to say what we spent. I've always been happy to talk about transfer fees. I'm even happy to talk about wages, but the players are gone mad. So I see stuff thrown around all the time, and it's like, no, that's not true. And a lot of the time people think we don't pay that. We actually pay more. You know what I mean? So this is the real world we live in. And I would love to see a little bit more transparency. You got it was is it what is it called? The podcast. Is it Kieran Maguire who does the
Yeah,
podcast?
price of football.
Plays football very good. He's very good at what he does. He had a dig at us over historical stuff before, but I've forgiven him for that. But he is very good, getting into the nuts and bolts of finances and studying balance sheets and trying to explain to fans. And that's almost the transparency you want. But obviously, there's only so much he can get information wise. But his stuff is good. There's a few out there like that you get at time to time. We get like a benchmark report every year that tells us where we are in the league in terms of spending, in terms of wages, in terms of transfer fees and agents' fees. And you get all the numbers, but you're not told who the other club numbers are. You know who you are. So we'll see ourselves sixth in the table. We're club number 32. But we don't know who number 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 are in the benchmark that the EFL send us. So I'd have no problem voting for that to be completely transparent.
Why do clubs not want that to be transparent?
I don't know. I've no idea. Honestly, I guess people see it's a private business, and they don't want dirty laundry out there. I don't know. I've never been shy coming forward, telling people, I'm proud to pay a transfer fee. I'm proud when we sell a player. I'm proud when we do well financially. I'm proud when we balance the books. I know people still want to dig me out about recruitment this summer or whatever else, but I felt we did a really good job on that front, and we didn't put our club under tremendous pressure. That if things didn't work out, suddenly we're in big trouble, and I've always been proud of that fact. So, we have a fans forum tomorrow night, and I'm sure I'm going to get it from some of the fans in regards to the recruitment, but I'll always stand up to that.
Mm-hmm. Question from Matthew also came on the email. So there was an article actually last week. I just didn't get to this question last week about substitute coaches.
Yeah.
Essentially, the idea of having somebody on the bench to make sure that any substitutes coming on are ready, both mentally and physically. Matthew says it's all about the small gains these days. Would you consider it?
I love small games and margins. I think that one's shite, not for me.
Mm-hmm.
You're in game, you've got things going on, you want the manager's hand on the pulse. Players shouldn't need a coach to get them ready to come on the pitch.
Right.
I think we're taking things too far. Now, you are going down the NFL route of special teams.
Mm-hmm.
We've got coaching set up, whether it's a set piece coach, whatever, a subs coach is probably like, yeah, no, not for me. But listen, each to their own, we try it.
Let's see, what else do we have? One more from Derek came across on email. Do you think America will ever move away from the college model? Would America's national team talent pool that aren't in the Premier League, Serie A, etc., be better suited playing for League One or two clubs or Scandinavian sides, as an example, rather than playing in college football or college soccer?
I've said it before in this. The American system's fucking terrible. It's terrible. The whole lack of a pyramid, the USL to the MLS, to how the players are drafted, to have you got pool cleaners playing games next to players who are professionals. It's the whole thing's fucking wrong. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to anyone who's playing in it, but to get players, to get them special dispensation instead of going through the college draft system to come in and play League One, League Two. Even if you said they're only allowed to do it for 2 years, then they have to report back and they get into an MLS or USL team. The system has to change. And I've said this equally about, let's get League Two and League One players over to America in the US. If they turned it into a proper pyramid with a Prem and 3 leagues below, you would have so much interest from outside America with English people or Scottish players or whatever else, or Irish players playing over there. You would sell TV deals, you would sell subscriptions on a Netflix type service to people here who wanted to see those players. So they really have to get their head out of their fucking arses out there in America, because now's the time more than ever that the game could blow up bigger than before. So it's frustrating.
Is there much of an infrastructure to be able to bring young players from the States over to the UK and vice versa?
No, residency issues, visa issues, work permit issues. There's too much roadblocks and red tape. You know, I know personally because I've had a couple of players I wanted to bring from the States and they just wouldn't pass the smell test with the permits, the issues. So no, there's no easy way. There should be an agreement between our leagues and our governments on
Right.
making it work, and equally the other way. And there's not,
No,
and it's wrong.
no, the players I've seen come through to Bradford have been through like an education system. There's
Sure.
like something called RIASA, which is bringing folks from the US, putting them in the UK education system, having them play while they're in that. So we had that's how Naki Wells came through.
Yep.
And there's a kid called
Actually,
John.
that's Canadian or
No,
American.
he's Bermudian.
Or Bermudian, that's who it was, right? Okay.
And another one called John Lewis, who came over as a 16-year-old, didn't settle, went back to New York, is now in the US national team. But I think he lasted about a month with us
Phenomenal.
because he
But
wanted.
is that still going? Is that
It
system still
is,
going?
yeah. But I mean, I haven't seen anything come through, at least at that talent
Is
level.
that under 18s? Is that under 18s? Is there a certain age criteria on that?
You know, I'm not certain. I'm not certain whether there
Because
is.
we've tried to bring like an MLS 21-year-old at times.
Mhm.
You know, it's difficult, and they have to have played certain caps and certain under
Right.
21, certain criteria, and then to get the permit and then the cost of it. No, really difficult. And then you're negotiating with the MLS if you want to buy a player. You're not
Mhm.
negotiating with the club, I believe. So I'm not quite sure how that side of it works. I think doesn't the transfer fee go to the MLS, not to the actual club in the
Yeah,
MLS?
or a portion of it, and then they split it between all the
Yeah,
clubs.
it's fucking bizarre the way. I mean, we have this system going on for 100+ years in Europe and the rest of the world, as far as South America, and America decide to go their completely own way with it when it comes to shocker, and it's baffling to me. You know, the prototype's already out there, very successful. Why fuck around with them?
Well, because they want a guaranteed income, don't they? So they can
They do.
price the
None of them want to be
franchise.
relegated. None of them want to lose a value in their franchise, but they don't realize that their franchise would be worth twice as much if they had a pyramid that was watched by 1 billion people
Right.
worldwide.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you everybody else for listening to us this week. We'll be back again next week. Keep those questions coming in, whether it's through the through Twitter, whether it's through the website hardtruthfootball.com/contact, or the email contact@hardtruthfootball.com. Good
Take
luck
care, everyone.
against
Have a great.
Huddersfield, and a special good luck from a Bradford fan against Huddersfield this week, which will make Huddersfield fans probably hate me even more.
And
But
good luck to your games this week as well, Tom.
thank you very much. I will talk to you next week.
See you soon, guys.